The Area Planning Commission for September 11th, 2023. Let's stand for a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Brenda, if you could do a roll call, please.
Atkins,
Here.
Bothwell, Royals,
Here.
Cottle,
Here.
Couse,
Here.
Hicks,
Here.
Hunt, Nevers, Knuckles, Pearson,
Here.
Todd, Wright,
Here.
Reedy.
Here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're good. Okay, the attorney is online, so we do have David Glickfield online. So if we have questions, we can pursue or ask him through there. Okay, so first up would be approval of the minutes from last August 7th. Anybody have any questions, concerns? I think I read through them. They appear to be pretty accurate in my opinion. Any questions, Steve? What you got?
Mr. President, under 6.2.
6.2.
Yeah, first line there, the old Underwood Meat Market,
Yep.
where we had trouble with S-A capital I-T. What is that?
Sahi.
Sorry.
Is that,
Sahi.
Sahi.
was that the old?
Previous owner.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Okay.
And then down the third line up from the bottom has 12 binder. He goes through daily. Is that supposed to be 12 binders? Is that what that is? I mean, there's a checkoff list that he goes through. I was just trying to, it's good questioning from Mr. Atkins last time. I'm just trying to figure out what that really meant.
12 binder.
12 binders.
Yeah, I think you did mention about different checklists and standards and checks.
You remember? Okay.
I'm assuming that's some sort of log or register that he goes through.
Different logs.
That's what I'm thinking,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, those were the only questions I had on that.
So you willing to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion, we accept the minutes as of it.
Steve makes the motion. Do we have a second? Second. All right. David, second. Call the roll.
Atkins.
Yes.
Royals,
Yes.
Cottle,
Yes.
Couse,
Staying.
Hicks,
Yes.
Hunt,
He's not here.
Pearson,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
And I'll be a yes.
Chuck.
So I got up there. Okay. Next up on the agenda is the public hearing for the pond ordinance, which should have been duly advertised for tonight's meeting. So generally with public hearing work, we'll have a time in the beginning for presentation and in favor of, and then there'll be a rebuttal time if there's anybody in opposition to it, and then a chance for the counter back to the people in favor. So this is actually something that the area plan has brought to us to develop a pond ordinance to help regulate pond use ordinance uses. So Ryan, do you want to explain what we got here?
Yep.
So this is the start of the public hearing, basically in favor.
Pretty much this would come about because of questions that we had with setbacks, site plans, things that keep coming up for small ponds in which we had no ordinance or direction on or guidelines on. Anything over an acre goes to an R5 or a Rule 5 and has to go through the USDA and then brought back to us for grading. But anything less than an acre, we had, again, no guidelines or regulations on. This year, we've had complaints on how close can it be to a property line. We've had complaints on, they're digging, they're taking all the fill and throwing it in the right of way or throwing it next to the property line. How far off does it have to be? And in those instances, there was nothing we could do because we had no guidelines or regulations. So I started off with talking with the drainage board, seeing what their thoughts were as far as if we needed to have a pond ordinance or not. They agreed and said to move forward with it. So I went and I checked out all surrounding 10 counties, and come to find out all 10 counties surrounding us have a pond ordinance. So this pretty much was taking those 10 ordinances, meshing them together for us. The ordinances out there were anywhere from 1 paragraph to 8 pages. So we put this together. I brought it back to the drainage board. The drainage board sifted through it, gave their consensus on it. Went through it again with Jim and Raymond, surveyor and surveyor's office. We've got it down to draft 3, which we handed off and presented last month for tonight. Now it is not completed. We still have questions for the APC to answer on this. And this is basically.
All right.
So we do have some questions to answer on where you guys want to finalize on things like permit fees, what you would like to do with the land use table on these, because we do have some contradictions. We just want to go through those.
Well, we do have to, so you're presenting what we need to do.
Right.
And there's still a couple line items that still need to be corrected
Right.
or addressed.
So I
within
mean,
this.
we can move it forward with a unanimous vote tonight with
the changes.
the correction.
If we-
Or
Yes.
if we don't have unanimous, it would go for a second reading.
Okay.
Either way is fine.
Yes.
But notice that,
So that's in the back where you got red or
Right.
no?
so determination of what we want permitting fees to be, that are anywhere from $25 to $100 is what we're seeing. Land use table, it calls, our land use table calls for a special exception to the BZA for artificial lakes that are 3 acres or more. There is no definition of sizes in our book. There's nothing that says a pond size is X acres or less, and nothing that says that lake size is X acres or more. Land use table has nothing on ponds and does not restrict them in any zone district.
That's our land use table or a state land use table?
Our land use table.
Okay.
Next question is who has authority? Some of them stay between the Area Plan Commission and the BZA. Some of them stay between surveyor and drainage board. Current way that we've set it up is through the Area Plan Commission with approvals from the drainage board, surveyor, health department, highway department, where applicable.
I thought I read that.
Or our zoning, anything that has to do with the zoning variance would go to the BZA. Anything that would have to do with a drainage variance goes to the drainage board. Setbacks, our setbacks again are all over the place. Seen setbacks from property lines anywhere from 20 foot to 100 foot. Seen setbacks from the front arterial road right away anywhere from 30 feet to 150 feet. In the ordinance, I tried to keep them simple at like 25 and 50. But again, and that's kind of what you guys are fighting.
Okay, so I read through the ordinance and I did see where you already plugged in some of these things.
Right.
I like your recommendation, but these are things. So the first one would be that we run across is the fee. And you have in there $100.
Right.
So should we have this fee within the ordinance or should it be into our fee table so that we don't have to update the ordinance when we change or the fee table?
It go into our fee table.
So it wouldn't necessarily be listed in this ordinance.
Right.
So we could refer to the fee table as far as what the fee should be. rather than listing it in the ordinance itself. That way we don't have to go back and change it if we change the other one.
Yeah.
So then what do we want to charge you guys? What would be a fair, so you've seen it run from $25 all the way up to like 100,
Remember, I did most of this like back in March,
right,
25 to 100.
right. So 50 is the middle of the road.
Hmm.
And it's going to involve reviews of different departments, like the drainage ordinance. So it's not like a simple all in one office stop. There's going to be cross and things like that. So should probably be more than a normal building permit or simple permit, I should say.
And that's really for us, the biggest thing is that site plan,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to know, where they're putting it. Are they close to regulated drains? Are they close to septic? Are they close to, right now, we're not looking at any of that.
Okay.
I mean, if they put it in the ground and oop, there's a finger,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know.
All right. So I'm thinking we go right through the ordinance. And then we address the concerns as we go through. All right. So in that second section there, permitting and approval, the only thing in there, I guess, is the fee. And you're satisfied with 100 or 50, or what do we got a concern here? Yes, Steve?
I mean, my take is one of those things where this is gonna take multiple departments, it's taking a lot
Right.
of time. It's taking,
Right. It should,
Mr. Todd's time and stuff going on.
Could be the health department and everything.
The $100 is a very fair fee for somebody wanting to do a major project, such as a pond.
right.
That's my take.
I think so too. It's-
Because they may have to go out
Right.
and look at stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so leave it at what's recommended there, keep it at 100. But I'm thinking it should not be listed within the ordinance. It needs to be on the fee table.
I would agree.
See fee table.
So
Yeah, see fee table.
for tonight, why don't we just answer these questions, and then when we come back next month, I'll have fee table, land use table, I'll have it
Okay.
all to where it's just, we can move on with it.
Good.
I do have, because this is a public hearing, we're supposed to be limited on time. I don't know if is there anybody in the audience that has opposition to a pond ordinance that we're developing that's going to want to come and talk so that we do not neglect that in the process? Any show of hands? You may want to talk on pond ordinance as far as a opposition to.
That'd be great.
Okay, we wanted. Okay, because if we're going to go through this and get the clarifications, public hearing, update our things and come back on second reading next is the thought process here.
It'll probably be first reading. This is gonna be more just a workshop.
Okay. Should we have opposition talk now before we continue through so we can maybe address those issues if they pop up? All right.
I'm Ed Hartman. My issue is a little bit, what is the minimum size that someone could construct without going through this process? I know some people that have small ponds, not anywhere near half an acre, not even probably a quarter of an acre. At a small pond, they stocked it with some fish. Another person made one for his cattle to drink out of near his barn. Are you going to make them go through that process too? Is there a minimum size? Because, you can have some pretty small ponds. Some people might make one for a waterfall and just an effect
Right, like,
near their house. Is that a regulated pond? I didn't see a minimum size in the ordinance. I thought, the way it stands now, I would say I would not be in favor of that.
And really, reading through 10, I never saw a minimum anywhere either.
Yeah, so I think that's a consideration. It just may be a little too much regulation when you get down to very small ponds.
So we'd have to have a definition of what that is, right?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I was trying to get with with the way our thing says 3 acres or more, special exception, but we don't even say anything about ponds. But what about 2 acre or 1 acre? That's what I'm just trying
Right.
to,
Okay,
do we want to think of a list of? Because even, I mean, even with a small, less than half acre pond, even for fishing, is it going over a septic tank or a tile or?
maybe it have to be, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so things would need to,
Kind of true. I mean,
yep,
I do, you know, on the
They're
drainage
putting a little
side,
thing in your
stuff like
front
that,
yard for
yeah.
a little thing at the front door for
koi pond,
yeah, koi pond. We don't, I mean, that's,
right,
Well, I think it would depend on how many, somebody owned, how close it was to anybody. If it's out in the middle of 200 acres, I don't think it's gonna bother anybody. And if it's over one of their own tile, they're the ones gonna have to fix it.
what if they hit that regulated tile right in front of your farm, Frank?
I don't,
Your
I
next
don't
one?
have one going across there. So, everybody else had one coming across on me.
Should we have a provision where they need to check with the septic system somehow?
well, that's part of the checks going through when they do apply. to make
I
sure-
mean, even if it's just a little thing, if you got a pond that you're fishing out of, but it's interrupting the septic system, obviously that could be.
They need to check with the mayor's office and the health department if there's anything in that location. Because they'll have a map of all the county ditches and stuff like that.
If they're adding on to the footprint of their house, they're
Mhm.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is just a, you know, like anything else we would construct, we'd want a site plan, we'd want 811, what are you building on top of? And I go back to LeGros Road, where we have the road coming, this is out by Brenda's house, but it goes, turns and goes,
Mhm.
very pond.
Right, that zigzag,
So, I mean, this even gives us regulations that if you're within 50 foot of the road, the BZA can actually make you go to the highway department and have guardrails put in. If they allow a variance less than 50, they can also require guardrails.
Is there anything about depth pond? Would it make sense to have anything on depth?
We have nothing.
Does anyone have anything?
I wouldn't think.
What
That,
about retention ponds for developments? Is that a whole different ballgame?
That would, any retention pond would come with a development. So I mean, we'd have a site plan there to begin with.
Is it
Taylor's-
regulated?
Taylor's gonna build something that would be part of their development plan altogether. They'd have site plans, drainage plan. I mean, they'd have all that off the bat.
Are there
So we would
regulations that they
double charge.
have to comply with in regard to
Yeah.
a retention pond?
Yeah. So for a development, that would all be included together. We wouldn't say, okay, we're gonna charge you for this plus this.
Okay.
So their development plan would supersede this pond ordinance proposed, right?
Right.
And does it need to be written somewhere that that's the case?
Well, say we're doing, someone's remodeling a house and they're going to do electric and plumbing. Instead of charging them for 2 separate permits, we give them a remodel permit, which kind of encompasses everything. That's kind of what a development, they would already have everything encompassed in it. And they're paying, you know, Taylor would come in for the new auditorium and come in and hand us $5,000 for that development. And here's an extra 100 from our retention pond. So we wouldn't we'd just say, okay, we're good over here.
So somewhere in one of the documents, or the other, it needs to say that would supersede. This is for when you don't have a development.
Yeah.
Right. So no one's clear about what they need to be.
well, development plans, they got a checklist of things to go through and
Right.
retention ponds are all based on how big it has to be for drainage going into it and how to get out. I mean, it's all that, so. It's just not a pond sitting there.
Let us pond.
Okay. Anybody else in opposition or have a question on what we're reviewing at this time? We'll get those questions. So keep in the back of our mind as far as sizing, as we get to maybe that potential site. Pond construction permit, anybody had questions on that? Construction pond, construction exceptions. If I'm missing something, speak up, Ryan. Site plan, talked about. Size, location, elevation, about, okay.
Yeah,
Good for 1 year. You talked about variances. Good, the BZA. That's for property line setbacks, so once we get that established.
And two is for drainage board, we're in
Right.
variances to Indiana Drainage Code.
Drainage board shall be responsible for variation setback involving. Okay, so then we're getting to pond requirements next, right?
Yep.
So setbacks, at least in the first one there, you're saying 25 foot on the sides and back and 50 to the front.
Well, we've seen from property lines, we've seen 20 to 100.
So this is kind of like an average of what you've seen out there.
And then on the front road right away, we've seen 30 to 150.
So the ones you saw, trying to remember back, at 50, did they seem to have any issues with needing guardrails or blockage
Yeah, that's
from the
right.
road?
On the shorter one.
Okay, but at 50, it didn't seem so. Anything less than that seemed to.
Yeah, like I said, some of these were a paragraph.
Mhm.
Some of them were,
Right.
a page and some of them were 8 pages. And that's kind of how I went to the drainage board. You know, we can make this
Right.
small as you want or as big as you like. And the whole goal was, one, to have that site plan,
Mhm.
and two, to have a setback. So that when those questions come in, we've got an answer.
And then if they don't like, if they need something different, then they go through the process of going to BZA or the drainage board or whatever need. Okay. Anybody have concerns with 25 foot on sides and rear and 50 to the right of way of the front of the property? Concerns with that? Seem to be.
So A is ours. When we get down to 3, that is state code. When we get down to 4, that is also state code.
Setbacks of buildings shall maintain.
Nothing within 75 of a regulated drain or 50 from a septic.
So the number 2 setback from buildings shall be a minimum of 50 feet. That'd be buildings, outbuildings. 50 feet. Okay, so 3 and 4 are state codes. But we can't in the 4A. Number 5, pond construction within floodplains will be need,
5 state codes in.
that's, yeah, I would think so too. Okay, so we really can't do anything with that. Fill dirt, so this is what they dig out of the ground to make it.
Right. Again, this is not necessarily a state code. This is what I compiled through the rest of them.
Okay,
And I put in there, we had no fill dirt within the right of way, or within 10 foot of the public right of way. And Raymond brought up the point that sometimes they need that dirt for the right of way. So I kind of I kind of added in there because it'd be the highway department's choice to say, okay,
okay.
that it would be allowed with their approval.
So if they're excavating that they need it in that area, they'd have to get their approval before they can spread it there.
Okay.
So prefer not, but if you want to, they need to get approval.
Right.
Okay. Same way on the property lines, the other 3. Without approval. So if they think they need that space, they gotta go to the neighbor and ask for it.
Yeah, and if there's a mutual agreement, but that keeps us from, because the one we had really upset was they put a 10-foot berm up and changed his
Sidelines,
site forever.
okay. All right, so then that would work. It's 10 feet away from property. So that's just like. No placement of fill material allowed in areas that would interfere with current septic, which makes sense. That'll be all on our site plan, so. Anybody have a problem with what's in B? Okay, C, drainage. Lines are cut, broke.
On the damage, that's kind of the standard. You break it, you bring
Fix
it back up.
Right,
That's through drainage board. That's even like into our soil ordinance and stuff.
Right.
Same thing. If you get into a tile, you fix it.
makes sense
And
to me.
You do it up to the drainage board's approval.
No compacting soil and existing nearby septic, because you don't want it, once again, you don't want to interfere with how that system works, right? Any questions on damages? All right, moving on to surface outlet or emergency overflows. So those are controls of the dam or the pond or discharge. These are all just basically the combination of,
You can't flood your sewer, you can't flood your neighbor's sewer.
Right.
You can't flood your neighbor's property.
right, and you can't discharge directly, right, right. So all that seems very good to me. Any questions, concerns? Enforcement violations and penalties, right of entry. The way I read that is if they sign a permit or come in for a permit, they grant us rights to come and inspect.
And that's pretty much take of it.
Yep. Stop work order, so if we find something, we can go through and stop. Notice the violation, it tells you how we notify. Complaints, any person believes violation of ordinance has occurred. So that somebody can complain as far as a neighbor or whoever. That would be not us, right? More for a neighbor, because should be inspecting. Public nuisance,
That follows our standard code enforcement.
okay,
Go talk to them, then letters.
then liability.
We're not building the pond for them.
Right.
If they build it, it won't fill up. It's not our problem.
I've had seen that. Okay. Any questions on those? So do we need to go back to a size? I don't know how we determine that. Or, any thoughts?
Making the minimum barrier, you mean?
Well, I'd like the size, because anything over an acre, what was it, over an acre, you got it
It's rule 5.
as rule 5, anything under is not rule 5, so we have controls in place. But how small do you go? I mean, if you're putting, like, say, a koi pond in, you don't want to, that seems a little ridiculous.
Minor cosmetic.
Right. If you're putting in like say, next to for cows or horses to drink out of. But it could be out in a field that maybe has some pipes or things, so maybe that kind of borderline there.
And you'd hope the farmer would know where his private tiles are at.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever, Frank, ever dug into a tile and thought, where'd that come from?
No, not yet. I'm not a pond person. I buy places, fill them up.
Okay. So if I wonder, well,
Bad thing of it is, it doesn't matter what side the pond is, they go out there digging.
right, they
You're
could,
gonna run into problems. I don't know how you go about size. I'd be more concerned about the depth and,
yeah.
you know, if they're only gonna dig like 2 feet deep and then take that dirt, and, you know, make it deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how you're gonna do the size, cause you could have the same size and not put the dirt around it, but you may dig 8, 10 feet deep and,
Right.
you know, cause a problem. So
Could hit yeah.
what do you think, Randy?
Help me understand. This ordinance applies to what size?
1 acre or less.
1
Is
acre
what we're
or
focused
less?
on.
Right, because the other one goes rule 5, which has all the other.
Because they already have to do it for over it. Over an acre already has to be approved, the USDA, which our USDA sends it to IDEM and back.
So how many square feet's in a quarter of an acre? Because I think if we're gonna start,
10,000 and some.
if you're gonna start figuring out, what is a reasonable one that we don't necessarily have to have any control over, then we've got to visually be able to take in consideration how big this thing could be.
890 square foot,
Okay,
How many?
10,000.
that's 1 acre.
That's
So
1 acre.
a fourth of an acre would be,
Well, that's a quarter of an acre. An acre is 4560.
okay. See, I guess you really got to think about that as to, because what's going to happen, people are going to do them and we're not going to know about it. It's going to go on down the road.
Right.
Well, I guess in some way, if they do it and they run into trouble, shame on them for not coming in and checking. And hopefully they're only,
It helps us with the neighbor who comes in and says, hey, they're digging all this and throwing it on my property, the right of way, they're throwing it. They're creating, so now I look out my front door and all I see is their hill.
I know there's one in my area that way. And they find about it.
An acre is really a pretty big pond. That's not
Yep.
going to
Oh,
go in
yeah,
somebody's front yard,
right, that definitely needs to.
and so I don't know. We wanted to,
Quarter of an acre wouldn't be bad, but you can get in trouble with something smaller than that. It just
Yep.
depends.
Deep, they
Yeah, you don't know how deep they're gonna dig it, how high they're gonna pile dirt.
Maybe, well,
And some-
when you're excavating, you, just like putting footers in for a house, you gotta have it marked out and make sure your setbacks and utilities and all that.
right?
Yeah, that's why
Let's roll with it and let's see what happens. If we need to amend it down the road, we'll amend it.
I'm thinking, why did the other 10 ordinances?
Never mentioned it.
In there either.
There's gotta be a reason behind it.
Someone probably said,
Order
we're
of
having
names.
this conversation.
good.
Oh, that's still a pretty good sized pond,
That's a
get in
big
trouble. I mean, you could build one smaller than that. Cause your neighbors problems. I almost think they all need to be looked at and maybe I don't know, or let's say to charge a different fee or not charge a fee for one under a quarter. But they need to come in and get permission for that.
Right.
So that they-
Try and do.
One thing about it is, we don't have anything now.
That is true.
So whatever we're doing is better than what we've got now.
So you can dig your neighbor's backyard up real quick, on
We
the
could.
Just don't
I
have power
I
line.
could.
So Frank, you're suggesting drop the fee for anything smaller?
Anything smaller than a quarter, but I think they need to come in and check with the healthy part, make sure there's not a
Right.
septic system or a county tile there. They need to check, get it cleared between them two for under a quarter of an acre. Otherwise, I think they need to, I think they should check it all out. Because you get in the housing addition, they need.
Yeah,
Or, you
any
know.
kind of digging, you're supposed to contact, right? Supposed to, right?
Holy moly.
Holy moly, at least.
But I don't know if they check,
Yeah, they'll check utilities.
yeah, that don't check on.
They don't check drainage or
No.
drainage and sewer.
They're looking for gas. And
Gas and phone and,
phone.
Only on utility right of way.
yeah.
But you won't dig a pond there, hopefully. Huh? We have run tile ditches across them and have had them come out. Do that on the crossroads.
So consensus is leave it where everybody comes in, and if it's a small project, less than a quarter acre, we do less of a fee.
Just want to see how it goes and we have a bunch of people come in with koi ponds. Via common sense.
Well, but see, a koi pond is not that big and it has a liner that would protect, protect septic systems and
Yeah, they're not gonna dig
No.
that more than a feet deep.
so.
It'd be smaller in this area right here.
But generally, yeah, they're not usually
They're
deep.
not that big, but
No. All right, so what do we decide? Anything, just leave it ride?
Sounds like everyone comes in,
Okay,
no fee for under a quarter of an acre, but everyone comes in and checks. Sum
Yeah.
up what.
and then if, if it's small, okay. But still, it may need to still run by all the departments, verify that it's not on a septic.
They still have to come in and check. That's.
Okay, but a small one, which is more recreation, small ornamental recreational type guidelines.
What would the cost be to have the departments do their checks,
Yeah.
even on the small one? If it's
Yeah.
gonna cost them time, their time's worth something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That needs to be charged to who wanting to do the project, even if it's only a quarter of an acre pond.
So you're talking going out, looking at the property for the setbacks. But probably once they start digging, I would imagine Jim will want to get out there and look at it. That's what we're talking.
So you're almost gonna be doing the same legwork on either size,
Yeah, no matter what the size is, they're still out there using their
right?
equipment.
Well, and the other thing we run into, and we know how GIS is. We've had a situation before where it tells us the regulated tiles right here. And we go ahead and okay something and we find out the regulated tiles 150 foot to the north
Yeah.
and we're 2 foot off of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
We just had that with Kate.
Leave it like it is.
Just leave it alone.
And if we need to amend it at some point, then to do something.
And what else do we have?
Right now, we've got it calls for a special exception through the BZA for artificial lakes that are 3 acres or more. I don't believe that's ever happened. I don't believe we ever had, that I can remember.
No definition for sun.
Any questions for our attorney who's getting ready to get on the airplane?
All right, I don't know. Does anybody got a question for Dave, Mr. Glitfield? So
I'm going to have a question for him, not with your pond, but in a public speak time.
all right, so we need a definition for a pond. Is that what we're looking at? A pond is anything that holds water, right? When does it transfer to be considered a lake?
Do we want to go 1 acre or less is pond, 1 acre or more is lake?
Sure, why not?
Have you seen that in the other ordinances?
Yeah, that's what I kind of,
All right,
put it as that way. And then as far as the artificial lakes, special exception for any that are over 3 acres. I don't know that we've ever done that, but it's kind of the same principle.
mhm.
You know, we're just not wanting, we don't want them to just throw it in there. Do we want to go? Do we want to go any lake as a special exception, or do we want to leave it as a certain size? Becomes a special exception? Or does it need to be a special exception?
I think if it fits the setback rules and all that, you own the property, fits in with anything that, all the other guidelines.
Because we didn't have any pond regulations,
Mhm.
just said, hey, we're gonna, I know it was probably put there for what happened over here with Garthway,
Yeah.
would be my guess.
What about the event where somebody wants to build a pond and then sell housing lots around it? Do we have anything that would,
Plan development, right?
Well, if you're doing that, it'd probably be subdivision. We would be into
that it have,
subdivisions, that'd be through APC.
okay,
I mean, as it stands right now, 3 acres or more is a special exception.
3 acres is a big one.
Yeah,
Right.
well, yeah, somebody's gonna have to have some land to do that.
I think that would need to be a spatial exception.
That, yeah, that's,
Yeah. And it's probably gonna be part of a larger development, I would think. That's more than your typical fishing pond.
right.
That address that area then?
So, up to 1 acre is a pond, over an acre is a lake. 3 acres is a special exception. That's
You gotta
right.
have a pretty sufficient water source to fill up 3 acres of.
Right.
Right.
And I'll make, when I bring that back, I'll have those corrections on the land use table also slotted.
Okay. So who has the authority? Airplane Commission, BZA with variances. So, yeah, if they need a variance, because let's say they want to go into a different than what the ordinance reads, right? That'd be BZA.
So BZA would be your setbacks. Any zone, basically,
Right.
would go to BZA like it would today,
Mm-hmm.
and any drainage. Which is basically your 75-foot, nothing can be within 75
Oh,
75
right.
foot drain, they would have to okay anything less, which is what they've got to do today.
Okay. Good. And then we have in there, if I recall, getting approval from the health department and that first. So that's already written in there. Setbacks we've dealt with already, I believe. Anything else that you see we need to address this time, Ryan?
I will put it all together and have it ready for you next month.
Okay, any other comments? So this will go back and we'll have another, because this is basically your public hearing was tonight. So we're going to make adjustments to this. Have reading, second reading.
But no, this can't be official because I don't have what you guys are recommending forward
Okay.
to the commissioners is what I'll have for you.
Oh, that's
So
true.
you-
Oh, this is true. We're just going to recommend.
Right.
That's right. This is not,
So
and these will
I'll
also
have
go out to the,
commissioner sign papers.
that's right. That's right. We're just doing the public hearing for a favorable or unfavorable recommendation.
Right.
And we'll do that at the next meeting.
Right.
Keep me straight, Ryan.
Okay.
All right, so let's move. We're going to skip rules of procedure at the moment. We'll try to get the written commitment for the RC Gillespie, it's at the slaughterhouse, right?
Right.
So at our last meeting, we talked about allowing establishment to do retail sales only. That would be the only change to the current written agreement onto the property. So David worked with, I guess, his attorney that developed this language here.
Yep.
And we're good with this, or at least we are.
And your
Yep.
only change is instead of with no retail sales, the approved use is for a wholesale slaughterhouse operation with retail sales.
So this is basically what we agreed to last meeting,
Right.
to work with the customer, with the owner, current new owner.
So we put it together with the new owner. I gave it to David. David okayed it. I sent it to Mr. Gillespie. They approved it, sent it back.
Okay. Everybody here last meeting, remember talking about this? So this basically following up on that
And again, this is putting forth a recommendation.
to the commissioner.
Right.
All right. And this is not a public hearing, or you got it listed as a public hearing. Is considered a public hearing also?
Yeah. And I don't believe Mr. Gillespie's here. So he may have to take it.
Yeah, because if he can't speak and it doesn't have, does Mr. Gillespie have a representative or anybody online?
I think he misinterpreted that he came last month and talked to us.
Wouldn't need to do that?
They thought he was good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess we really can't proceed if he cannot represent himself and he doesn't have anybody filling in for him. Okay, so we need to get back with him and let him know.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll deal with that in the next meeting. Reports. Mr. Glickfield, you got anything for us out there before?
Yeah, getting ready to take off here, but we did go to court. We had a trial on the emergency demolition of the structure in Jonesboro. The judge did grant our request. So that was very good news. That building will hopefully be taken down before the festivities in Jonesboro start. Beyond that, I don't have anything else.
We took it down this morning.
Excellent. There we go.
Do you have 2 minutes or you need to get on your plane?
No, I'm good. I'm on the plane actually, but I'm good.
There's a lady that would like to ask you a question. So if we could do that real quick from the audience,
Sure.
I'm not sure what the topic is about, but if you come to the microphone, please.
Okay, Linda Sutton. I had two things to do with the fines the last time, but I'll skip that. We'll do that later. This has to do with building permits that are issued, that if you go upstairs and have them printed out, or if you print them out from your home, they're incorrect. Like this one, it says the property is exempt. It's owned by a private academy. The academy hadn't owned this property since 2019. So you're putting out incorrect permits. And that goes back to the permit that was issued for the renovation of a building for storage. Because on that permit, it said it was owned by the academy. It didn't, it was exempt. It was not exempt. It was privately owned, and it required a variance. So on that permit, there were numerous things that were off. I mean, just this last one, yeah, he built a fence, didn't have a permit for that, put his sign up, didn't have a permit for that, printed that off, and it says owner, Crosswinds. Crosswinds is not the owner of it. Mr. Young is the owner of it. Crosswind said, you know, that it's not them. I called them specifically. So, I mean, these permits need to be updated, your permit process. It can't be autofill when it's incorrect. These are something, this reflects on Grant County when you have this stuff put out and it's not correct. It makes it difficult to do an inspection. Ryan said that the man that went out and did the inspection on this building was used to doing commercials. It wasn't a commercial building. It was in a residential section, and it was listed as exempt. So he got nothing from having a permit check off. In fact, it gave him incorrect information to sign off on it and say it was correct. So I end up with the business across the street from me. So, I mean, something needs to be done about these permits and how they're permitted. I asked last time if you could get copies from other counties to see how they take care of this. Has that been done?
We spent $37,000 last year for a brand new program.
Well, it's not a very good program.
We're not, it's not up and running yet. We've got residential permits good to go, sign permits good to go, contractor registration good to go. Right now, we're still working through the permits that make sense. And we're trying to get them to go live, and we're working on the last issue we ran into is trying to get our schedule worked out to where it would set our map, and also so that we would be able to not only have our schedule, but add stuff to the schedule. So we're still working on little stuff like that, but we are 11 months in the works on brand new software.
So that hopefully will be, I don't know in particulars, that does seem like if we're pulling a permit, somebody's coming in for a permit, I don't know the exact procedure that the office does as far as checking to see if that is the correct landowner or not. I do not know.
No.
So
We would
Because this
pull up the
one-
GIS on it, and that's the information.
They don't.
okay, the GIS. Okay.
So to me, if even with an old computer program like this, if you know it's going to put wrong information on it, it ought to be deleted. It shouldn't give that inspector that information that it's exempt or that it doesn't need a variance when you know that's not true.
Let me see where you're talking about.
That's the stuff that comes from there.
See, here's this one and this.
Yeah, so this doesn't actually, for the partial, that doesn't exactly,
What's this?
same thing. It doesn't involve our department, but it's on the GIS as part of the information for the property. So it's not exempt from inspections or anything.
I didn't mean it's exempt from inspections. I mean, the inspector that goes out there, you said the man that inspected this building that was supposed to be renovated for storage, he was used to doing businesses, commercial. So he went out there and
But in the field, he had the permit. But in the office, we probably have a file list thing in the office. This is what he carries in the field.
okay, so he carries this in and it's still numerous places, it says exempt. Property is exempt.
That's probably from an assessor's office, auditor's office. It doesn't, it's just. part
So
of the
that
GIS.
gives him incorrect information. So he passes it.
But we wouldn't look at it
As a building.
as it's exempt from anything, because again, that's from the GIS, that is assessors or auditors information. It doesn't have anything to do with our inspection.
Okay, so that's
He's
it.
never leaned less than that.
Okay, but then you have, on all this multiple stuff, you have incorrect owners listed.
That would, I would think when you
So-
brought it up, it would still send crosswinds.
Yeah.
Elevate
Is it
board,
so?
Huh?
elevate,
Says it's crosswinds
Still,
still,
it's crosswinds.
That's from another office. They don't update.
so when we put the parcel in, it auto generates, and that is what our.
Well, then ought to take auto generate off there. It may be a little more work, but it should be filled in with.
But
the
I would
correct
say if
owner.
they went and looked at the resources that we have available, it would have gave the same owner.
And again, we're 11 months in, we're gonna have, like here, if you look, if I go do an inspection. If I go do an inspection on these old reports, in the computer, this is all the area I have to type in. So I may have a half a page
This was a big
for my
issue.
inspection, but I've got 20 characters per line there. Our new software will allow us to put in as much, put in pictures, put in everything to a parcel. So that if I walk up to that project, you'll have a QR code on the permit that I can take my phone, hit that QR code and know exactly who's been here, when inspections have been done, and it'll tell me anything from health department, assessment, what we have is from 19.
Well, you look at these and whoever goes out and does the inspection on it, they should know it's a residential area. It's not owned by a charitable organization to make it exempt from different property requirements. They should have that information there before they go out. It needs to be correct.
We're working on. I mean, that's the best.
That doesn't help me.
I don't know if you got one of these at the front table.
No.
That's every open permit in Grant County.
All right.
Well, that's another question. So, I mean, that's what your lawyer needs to consider is when you put these out there for people to download, when you go up to your office and get copies, they're not correct. I know it's not a legal document, but somebody's got to be accountable for this instead of saying, well, yeah, every couple of years, we get a bad inspection. They don't follow, the permits and go off and do what they want. But it does affect somebody, just like on this, I mean, applicant certification. They're signing that says everything is true, it's correct. They must not even read it because it's not true or correct. I mean, if you have people sign the permits and you've got wrong information down there, I mean, it needs to be pulled so it's not autofill, or leave it blank and they can print it in.
All right, thank you, and I'm gonna sit
I've
down
got
with
one-
you. And
I mean, I don't need the lawyer on this, but I've got one more thing. Last time I talked about fines for building permit fines, and right on your website, you've got a listing of fees and fines for different commercial and residential, start of construction without permit, fine variance because not as a submitted site plan. And you've got all these fines listed. But I asked last time about fines for Mr. Young doing all this work, and so far I've heard nothing. Have you called Mr. Young in? Have you talked to him about having fines on not getting the correct permits? And
Well, kind of like we talked about. Right now, we've got 1,463 open permits. Probably half of those we haven't seen in over 6 months.
yeah, but the
That's-
difference is, there's an issue with this one.
I know there's an issue with 700 permits right now, that I could put a $50 double for fine on. I just don't have anyone who can spend 2 weeks doing it. And at any given time, over half of our permits, we haven't seen in over 6 months. We catch up, we get busy in the summer and fall behind. Catch up, we get busy in the summer and fall behind.
So you need,
And it wasn't until 2021 that we actually convinced the county council that we needed a full-time building inspector. And, January 1st, 2021 is when went from a part-time to a full-time building inspector.
so how do I come back to these meetings and find out that you're making progress with your permits, that the permits are
I'll say,
correct?
I'll say this about our new software, and one of the great things about it, our software will actually send friendly reminders at 90 days, at 120 days, at 180 days. Right now, for years, we basically, as we slow down come holiday time, we start grabbing extra permits. We go out and we put little blue friendly reminders, no inspections for however much time, and try to generate phone calls from them. The new software is going to start emailing those out for us, and not just once, but 3 times. So that's going to save a ton of time.
So basically, all these people that need fined, you're not gonna find them. They're gonna,
It's hard to be firm but fair if I find 10, but not the other 600.
well, you've gotta start with something. And when you get enough complaints about something, then that should be your starting point.
I agree, like with most stuff in government, I could go to every department head in this building, they're going to find people short.
Okay, I think we've had enough discussion on this. We realize there are issues, and we have a limited budget. If that could change, then maybe we could get these things addressed more quickly. Hopefully with the software where it's sending out reminders to the contractor, and we get one too, to, hey, maybe we need to, while we're in this area, swing by and check out this, see if any activity. Hopefully we can stay on top of it better than just hand notes.
Right, I think Mrs. Sutton brings a valid concern to us. And, you know, I know that we've been short staff member, and I know that we're full now. And I know we have a hole that we need to dig out of. Do you guys, the Nicole, Katie, and you and Brenda have a plan on how you're going to address the hole? Are you prioritizing some of this list of inspections? I mean, can you share with us? I would like to know, you know, what your plan is. I think that's what maybe Mrs. Sutton is asking for also, is, you know, how are we going to get ourselves out of this hole that we're in?
Well, we're never going to get all the way out until we've got enough help. I mean, again, I don't know, you guys should have this, and that's why I put this together. So you guys, I mean, so that you're aware, I mean, you're looking at, since 2021, you're looking at $98 million in estimated construction costs that we've done through permits. You're looking at 2,398 permits, over 7,510 inspections. We currently have 1,463 permits open. One person's supposed to do that.
Are some of those completed structures that we could just sign off on with one final inspection? Or, I mean, I don't, ladies, I don't understand. I would like to understand more about what you do. I think that would benefit all of us.
I mean, when you get a permit, it depends what it's for. If it's a roof, we'll do a pre-roof and a final. If it's a house, we do stakeout, we do footing. Now, it could be footing for the house and then have to go back again for footing for the garage or the slab for the garage. You're talking foundation, you're talking framing, electric, plumbing. I mean, for a new house, it could be 15 inspections just for that one permit.
Does that need to be restructured where you don't have to go out there 15 times?
Oh,
That's
Yeah.
state code.
Yeah,
we take on
They-
liability.
they're supposed to inspect before they move on to the next
State code
step.
states that local jurisdictions shall ensure these building laws are enforced. So we have to see it before they can move on to the next step. So the problem is we have a lot of people who just don't call and move on to the next step.
They need to be fined.
I got
I agree.
800 of them. I don't even know where to start to go after them. Because she's doing between 10 and 20 inspections a day. Okay. Now,
What's your lawyer for?
now remember, we've got all four corners of the county. So in her 7 hours, she may drive 3 to 5 hours of that 7 hours. If she gets too much, then I jump in and I try to take outliers and somehow shorten her schedule. In the winter time, say she has 7 scheduled today, she jumps in the books. She tries to figure out, here's my route. I'm going to end here. And then she tries to get as many inspections in as close proximity as she can to try to get back to those we haven't seen in over 6 months.
Are the fines significant to pay someone's salary for doing it?
I mean,
Because if I was you, I'd go to the council and I'd say, hey, I need somebody here and we'll apply the fines to their salary.
I got a part-time code enforcement officer 3 years ago, and this is year 3 of trying to get her to full-time. Code enforcement secretary, what did I say?
He said couldn't.
But my question is, can you generate the revenue from the fines in order to support the wages for that person to get this thing under control? I mean, we're sitting here taking hits on things that are going on, and I'd like,
That's our friendly reminder, to get a good response from that, but a lot of what we have, we go out and we talk to the contractor, and the contractor says, well, the owner didn't call you. So we go to talk to the owner, and the owner says, well,
It's one
I
page.
just spent $40,000 on this. What do you mean the contractor didn't call you?
find the
So-
contractor.
So the code says the owner or their agent. Go after one without going after the other.
Owner or, so we have a choice. I'd go after the contractor. It's, it's the same thing as the lady that's in here from Fairmount and the contractor set her up. But I better shut up here.
No, and I, it's not that I
See
disagree
if I got a
with you,
problem, it's
Randy.
kind of like it is. I'm sorry.
I would like to do it all. I mean, I've had people tell me, why don't you just take last year's and throw it away?
Well, we gotta
Why
do
don't you
something.
catch up? Well, we're liable for every one of those.
We have to do something to get out of this hole.
That's where the new software's coming in. That's where getting back up to full.
Full stop.
But I mean, even with that, let's say the software comes in and it's great and we really start getting caught up. It takes a comprehensive plan, it takes a solar project, it takes one big thing. And we're off into left field.
I think you gotta get out of this hole. I don't
I'd
think you
love to
can
have-
keep, you can't keep pouring in the bucket, man.
Well, he needs more help.
Yeah, but.
I mean, it is that simple.
I'll tell you right now, you have paid me, if you paid me comp time, you would owe me almost 3 months off. So that's the time I'm putting in.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. How do you plan to get out of the hole?
Get software up and running.
Okay,
I
I
gotta
still,
get software up and running to get Rita solid. Once I can get Rita solid, I can get these guys out on code enforcement, and then I'm gonna take over half of the building inspection until we get Katie and Grace on their feet. We gotta work on training both ways there. I want both of them ICC certified. She's gonna follow up with planning. So I mean, we've got a goal. It's just, I've gotta get the software up and running. I've gotta get Rita. And he's been fighting this for, I don't know, 6 months, I've told them, okay, August 1st, we're gonna be live, come hell or high water. And we run it, hit a roadblock, can't get it done. Now we're September 11th. I wanted to be live August 1st.
If I was a contractor and I knew there was no consequence for me failing to comply with what I was required to do, I wouldn't think anything about it. I mean, I want to say, I probably would. I want to say that I would, but there are contractors who will move on. And you know, I think some point you really need, whether you say effective for all permits beyond 2024 or whatever. I mean, we got to clean this thing up with them not.
Tell me what you want to take liability for that we've never seen. House catches fire and we've never done an inspection on it.
You have a lawyer. Can't this lawyer?
No, I'm not saying don't do the inspection. I'm saying find that contractor for moving forward without the inspection occurring. That's what I'm saying. Hold the contractor accountable for following the guidelines or fine him.
I'm hoping we can get there.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't, we don't want any liability here.
I mean, that was the software was, our hope is the software is like adding another person. And it should be. It should be, people will be able to do permits at home. It's going to set our schedule. So instead of an hour and a half trying to figure out the best route, she'll be in and out of the office in less than a half hour. It'll be sending friendly reminders.
Is there something we can do to get someone to help us with the software to get it where it needs to
We
be?
got IT working on it. We've got,
So,
I've called in other jurisdictions that are using this software too. Love it. We're having some of the same problems. So, I mean, we're working, twice a month, calling, we have an issue with something, we send it in. We just got a new, IT, just got an intern, who is a senior at Indiana University of Kokomo that specializes in the actual software we're running. She just started like 2 weeks ago, so they're gonna try to get her in with us. But again, it's, okay, let's sit down and do it. We sat down and went to schedule, and for 45 minutes, we sat there and never came up with it. We were missing something to get it to generate an order and generate all of it, so that it's, okay, how do we figure this out? So that's what we're working.
Chuck, I'd like to suggest that we have some representatives here meet with Ryan and just really look at this list of open permits that we have and maybe brainstorm about how we might be able to address some of that legally without liability. I mean, I'd like to better understand. I mean, you're telling me they're going back how many years?
Our permits are good for 2 years.
But you're telling the inspections are back, that you've got this list of things that we don't have done or we have to do. I mean, how long does that go back?
Well, right now, we're relying on them to call us for inspections just because of how many we've got. With over 1,400 permits out there, she can do 10, 15 a day on a normal day, depending on where it's at, location. If she has to hit all 4 corners, maybe she can only do 10, and I've got to pick up a couple.
So how often is it occurring that a contractor is not following procedure and requesting that inspection? Is that how, Nicole's,
Yeah.
maybe you want to answer that, Nicole?
Well, Ryan knows it too. I mean, it's the same. It's usually the handful of contractors that you get in face to face with, like, you don't call, we are going to put a complaint on you. After the 3rd complaint, we're gonna take you to the BZA and remove your license for a year. And I mean, we've got some contractors, as soon as we threaten just 1 complaint, they're calling us constantly. Then we've got some that, I mean, we're physically in, like, you cannot start, the orange permit needs to be there, you need to call for inspections. I mean, and at the same time, sometimes, I mean.
We get stopped.
I bust them.
That becomes that becomes code enforcement cases, so there is a fine that route. But you also run into, you take a house and you've got the person coming in doing the excavating, they're in and gone. You got someone coming in doing foundation, they're in and gone. You got a group coming in doing framing. You got someone coming doing it's
They're
that.
subbed under the original
Yeah.
contractor,
Yeah.
and it's the original contractor's responsibility to call for that inspection?
Or their agents, which would put their subcontractors in charge of calling for their inspections. And I mean, me and Ryan have sat on one site for like almost a half an hour explaining, call us when your portion is done. when you go to leave that day and you're not coming back, call us. And they'll say, yeah, we got it, we got it. 6 months later, we show up and the house is ready and people are moved in, and then we find 10 violations that says you can't move in.
I fine them. You gotta clean it up.
Get somebody's attention anyway.
And here's the thing, it's 10 times better now, because we got a full-time building inspector from where we were at.
But still got a hole you gotta crawl out of.
And that just takes time.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of why I put this together, so you guys can understand, that's one portion of area plan. That's not code enforcement and unsafe structures and planning and zoning, and this is just building and inspection.
And we do help out the contractors too. There's certain inspections that we would allow to go through text message. And of course, we tell them specifically, if it's footers, you have to have the measuring tape in the hole, showing us the whole thing. And we will allow you to continue to go on that, especially when we're busy and they're calling in, hey, we've got concrete coming in. Why didn't you check our footer? Well, with 6 people working and the phones are ringing, there's gonna be inspections that don't get put on that day. And that's not anybody's fault. It's just because our office gets busy. We got 6 people being ran over by phone calls.
Or it's not best route.
Yeah.
I mean,
We
not gonna
tried.
go from Van Buren to, hey, I'm pouring cement and running to Point Isabel to go back to an inspection in Sweetser to go back to Van Buren, just doesn't make sense. So, we have contractors out there that we do trust, that'll call and say, hey, we're pouring, and we say, okay, get us a picture. Get us something I can put with that permit to say, I'm aware that you're moving forward.
Yeah, and I understand that. If they got integrity, if you know they have integrity, then,
Yeah.
there can be trust and it can be okay.
So we have either the owner or his agent. And maybe we need some language that says the owner will be responsible for a fine if the agent doesn't call. We need, can we?
Well, we can do that, but until you have people to be able to enforce it.
But I'm saying so that the owner knows that if his subcontractors are not calling and are not getting the necessary inspections, then he's due a fine.
I would argue that because
Okay.
a lot of homeowners who spend $43,000 on their homes and stuff, why would it be their responsibility to make sure the contractor is doing what they're doing?
Because it's their.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, those owners are gonna come back at us, and why is it my responsibility to pay this man almost $50,000 or $180,000 to build my home, and now I'm in charge of calling my inspections? We have owners that do that all the time. That's why I can bring it up.
We deal with this all over.
Yeah, good point. What fun?
Yes.
So I know Brian and Randy, you both brought up this to me individually, that like to maybe get into the office and just see the day-to-day operations and look and see in person what's going on. So I wouldn't have any problem if you and Brian want to get together, come in together or separately, because Brian had some of the same concerns
Okay.
and kind of
I just want to better understand.
shadow for a day
Pick a day, I mean.
and come in
pick a
and
ride.
shadow for a day or half day and see where they're at and hopefully where we're getting with the software when it gets up and running.
So did I hear you say that you think things will, slack off or cool off in the winter time, and that's an opportunity to get caught up or not?
Hopefully.
That's, for years, what I did was dad would work the summer. I'd come in November and I'd try to touch everything and get him within 3 to 6 months. So when he come back in April, at the beginning of busy season, there was nothing out there that hadn't been seen in 3 to 6 months. And I did that for 6 years.
But we actually had winners. Ever since COVID, we haven't had a slow season. Nobody
Yeah,
has stopped building.
We're up to 31 million in construction already.
We haven't had a slow season since,
Since you've been here?
yeah, well, since 2021. Well,
Right.
you basically took over. We haven't had a slow season. We never had a real winter yet because everybody keeps building.
Well, if that's the case, then we're generating more money and we probably could use some more help.
Hey.
Well, that's always just people for you.
And they got new software that's supposed to help this.
Yeah, and it should.
When they come in, can't they get online with this new software for permit? So saves you got all this time.
That's
Take
getting
care of everything and do everything.
getting
on
us to
this.
that is what we're killing ourselves
Yeah,
right now.
that's what that.
Yeah, your main
do.
contractor, so you deal a lot with, work.
And
Great
she
for
told
them.
us in the beginning, it's usually take a year and a half to
Get
get
it.
it up and running. And
Okay.
everyone I'm talking to is telling me the same thing, but everyone I'm talking to is also telling me it's a big pain in the butt, what we're fighting over too.
All right.
We're wanting a summary and some of the stuff that we want that's not currently.
All right. So we got off course a little bit. Mr. Glickfield is actually probably flying off to somewhere.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And then, Ryan, any other things on your director's report? And
Just
we
what-
kind of got a software update on
Yeah.
in the mix there.
Software. Not really, other than we did get the emergency demolition, it's down, cleaned up tomorrow.
That was great all the way around.
Surely it fell down easily.
You would think, but no.
No.
The windows held on till the very end, that front of that building.
Wow. Cause I thought it was gonna end up in the middle of the street. the way it
Nope.
looked.
And Katie and Nicole have got, we got 4 more in that go to court October 10th.
Yes, we also have one contract that we just did asbestos check on today.
What check?
A contract demolition that we
Okay.
did asbestos check on today.
Specials.
Asbestos.
I was make sure it's.
Oh,
I'm sorry, my head talking, my.
And my hearing
apologies.
is not real good either.
Our hope is, again, our window with the highway department is November to April.
Right, so we're trying to get things lined up, and now we're,
And they are squeezing us in when possible.
right, like today.
Mhm.
That's great.
The only thing that I can see that we may not use the highway department on, which is still in the works with the highway department, is if we go back into Jonesboro for 401 and the rest of 435, we may have to do a, don't have a contract, bidding,
Bid it out.
because they're too big for the highway department.
Okay,
And that could chew up.
some money.
That's the north end of the same block, isn't it?
Yeah, we got 435, which was, okay, just for confusion, there's 435 was combined with 429. Technically, we took down 429, but on the records, it's 435.
Of course.
So we did not take down the apartment buildings of 435 in the process because we only got authorization to tear down the portion that was falling down.
Right.
We're going to get with Glickfield when he comes back to see what legality we can to go back in for the apartments, whether we have to use a whole new demolition or if we can go back in and readjust an order to get the rest.
Cause it's got a structural issue as well.
Correct, yes. And then 401, which is on the opposite end, is
Right,
the other one that we're
on the
on.
corner.
Yes.
And if we've got $47,000, and I'd say we'll get an additional 50 come December 15th when the year rolls over. But if we have to bid those 2 buildings out, it could be every bit of take everything we
Yeah.
got.
Yep,
Where's the motivation behind unfit building demolition? Who's behind that? That's what I'm hearing is that we're tearing down buildings, but we're not being able to inspect. I mean, obviously, it's taking time for you to tear down buildings,
With Katie being
Yeah.
trained underneath me for code.
but is that is tearing down buildings as important as making sure that we're inspecting contractors' work?
Did you see the one? And
No, I'm asking.
I mean, they've got 100 unsafe structures to get down. They've got,
Has that always been our responsibility to tear unsafe structures down?
oh yeah, we're the building department, so.
Commissioners can't help with that? Subcontract out to somebody else to do that? Or handle that, or does it have to be
well,
all through?
there has to be a whole process, because they, just like they filed cases that are in the courts now to get an order, so there's a process. Now that we're getting the pipeline filled back up, now that we got people in place.
Yeah, that's just for demos. You're not talking, I mean, we deal with, they're hoarding houses that people are hoarding full of rats or whatever. We've caught people living above a garage in a home outside of Cook Estates. The electric was running off the battery of the truck car. They were using the bathroom in a can. We had one where they were using the bathroom in a bucket, put it in a wheelbarrow and run it out to the septic tank and dump it. We're dealing with that everywhere too.
And okay, I don't mean to hit on towns, but I'm assuming that because some of the towns are part of the APC, then that relieves them of this burden of having to deal with unsafe structures. That's why it falls on our plate.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why couldn't Jonesboro or, Fairmount or
That's-
Upland handle?
That's our benefit of being in area plan, because we got professionals to handle all the legality. If you look at Swayze,
You guys got any
They're
money
not-
we can hire another person?
look at Swayze, they're not part of area plan, and they had a building fall down on State Route 13, and I think it's still sitting there
It is.
Yeah,
because they're not,
okay.
they gotta come up with the money on their own. So yes, it may move a little slow, but
Some of the,
between the orders, like where we may have to pay for it, like the one you're talking about, a contract with a homeowner that wants to take it down, they're willing to share the cost.
And we've got a bunch. I mean, compared to, we were getting 3,000 to 5,000 back. We have got 18 something already this year back from demo contract. So I mean, it is generating money back.
It is generating money back.
Yeah.
But
So that
still,
money comes straight back.
we're
into
still
that
behind
same-
on inspections.
But that's straight back into that. I don't, take your pick. Both of them is life and death.
We got positions to handle
Which
both.
one's more important?
Yeah, I understand.
and some of the towns have taken some of the work off of us. Fairmount tags their own vehicles. We do not go on Fairmount and tag vehicles. They do that on their own. Upland, their capacity starts with the initial process to work with the homeowners to get it cleaned up before we come in. So they start with the initial process, we move in with the warning process. So they give us the second option why they start the process.
So it relieves you of some,
And
Yes,
That's for-
I'll
and that's
tell you,
some of them.
That's for code enforcement.
That's
Yes.
because of what she's done. She's
can we
got-
ask towns to pick some of that up?
She's got those
I'm not making
relationships where
friends
they're
here with
offering.
towns.
Yeah.
You know, Andy's like, why don't I just start it? But I mean, that's part of the relationships that she has. With us going to town boards and stuff, people actually know who we are. So we've got towns willing to, hey, if you're gonna come knock these buildings down, how can we help you?
Chuck, this is kind of discussion I like to have with these folks so I can better understand what's going on here. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's educational,
Okay.
especially for the newer ones.
Randy, since we're kind of talking about blight a little bit, we took a guy to court, got him cleared to court here in Marion. Spent all kinds of money on attorney fees, the town did. Got him in here and the judge looked at the stuff, says, well, it's not that bad. And dismissed it. We're out $2,600 attorney fees just for that one case, and they did nothing for us. And we had pictures. I mean, the guy's saying he's got a bad back and all that. Well, he carried it in there. You should have been able to carry it out. So that's what you get into. It's really tough to get the courts to do something. For us anyway, it's been, and they've helped us a lot. I mean,
We
they,
come with a little more weight with them.
yeah.
Okay.
But people will really resist you, and when they get over here, they tell them anything they want to tell them, and it just hadn't worked out for us. We've tried.
And we've got I mean, with McVicker, trying to get, I already told him that's the other one. We have sat down after court and had conversations, hey, what do you want to see out of us when we bring these to you? What's going to, so I mean, we've got that kind of relationship, and even with this one, it was yeah, let's go ahead and do this emergency, that's about how long it took.
Yeah, he's a lot better than
Yeah.
what we were dealing with in the past. This has been a few years ago with you got that other deal, but you pull your hair out, and I don't have a lot to pull.
Thank you.
Do.
Can't have nothing. But again, Randy, pick it up, just show up. She comes in at 8, she starts setting her schedule.
Okay.
So, kind of the same thing, if you want to hit a day, let her know when she can get into the code enforcement cases that are the bad. If you want to go around and see some of that. Because
I just like to see us get out of the hole.
as we get going, I mean, if you let us know when, I can take the schedule for building inspector and you can ride with those guys.
Okay. See if we can work that in.
All right, anything else? Okay, we had one public input. Any other public input before we close? What we got, this guy back here in the green shirt first. I saw his name go up and then we'll get you.
I feel kind of funny about coming up here now after all this other stuff, but in Van Buren, of course, Jerry's got on, but there's properties over there that's not been there. There's nobody lived there. They're run down. I got one behind me that Nicole's actually looked at, but nothing's ever been done to it. It's just an old trailer. It's, the weeds, if you look out in my backyard, it's above my privacy fence. Then right around the corner is another empty. Then on the other side of town, there's property that they have no water, they have nothing, but they're living there. So we don't know where they're using their bathrooms at. I'm pretty sure I know, but yeah, they have to. But what can we do about it? I mean, like he says, we fine them or take them to court. Then the judge says, well, okay, don't look that bad. So he's spinning these wheels. You know, been on that town good 40 years. And Nicole's called me on weed things in the county because I'm the trustee. And usually we get them taken care of. But, you know, what can we do to help the town, you know, clean up these old properties that's just killing our property values? You know, I had my house appraised and the person told me that cost you 20,000 right there. You know, and I don't like that. You know, one of these days I'm going to die and my kids are going to sell it, you know, so, but I just want to know if there's anything else we could do besides that. You know, to get some help for Van Buren. I don't know.
And I told the council, I mean, when I talked to him, I said, you know, you could give me the full-time, part-time, or the full-time code enforcement secretary. You could add 2 more people, and I guarantee you, a year from now, they're gonna tell you they're overtaxed, overburdened. I mean, it's all out there, right? You give me the help, I'll put it to work. But it's gonna be difficult to, you know, with just one person. Cause she's running, how many code enforcement cases you got right now?
Open, or just all together, I've got 1176 all together right now.
Over, almost 200, if not over 200 right now.
But
Yeah, so, I mean, we've got 200 code enforcement, that doesn't include unsafe structures that we're working on right now, but, you know, you saw the permits.
How many times have you been though, Nicole?
This year,
No, on this property,
maybe once.
three times.
I was gonna say, if you give me a close address, I will. pull
No,
it.
but you talk to the people and everything's okay, and it's still there. I guarantee if you hooked onto that thing, it'd come apart.
Just wanted her to lock it up right now.
Yeah, but it's,
Again, it becomes a.
why can't you,
Out of the 100 we gotta take down,
I know.
where's it at?
but when years ago, township trustee was also assessor, I can condemn them. Like up in them old trailer courts, I took care of them. You condemn them and they had to do something with them. So I don't know if that still in that realm of stuff now or not. I don't know. That's the reason I'm asking. But we used to be able to do that.
The ones that upset me is, we have one in particular that an investment company out of Evansville bought.
It just,
And when they bought it, you couldn't have rented it. It's not even, you can't even renovate that house.
Oh, we have 2 of those?
Oh, we got several.
Yeah, well,
But I'm
I know
just
of
saying this one company, and I called them. I called them myself, and you can't believe the runaround I got. And when I told the guy, I said, you can't sell it, you can't rent it.
The frames like that.
The bottom of it's blowing out
Yeah.
like this, where it's getting ready to fall. They won't come clean it up. It just drives you crazy, and there should be some kind of legislation. I've tried to talk to a couple state representatives about it, about a tax sale should not happen to a property like that. That should never change hands. Whoever originally let that go, they should have took them to court anyway for an unsafe structure, because I'm telling you, somebody's gonna get hurt in that house. It's coming.
The judge tells us now that we can do that, because
Can
we kept getting caught with, you got court next Friday, and next thing you know, it become, instead of John Doe, it became Jane Doe, and property, and we had to start over. Judge said it doesn't matter now.
I called that number and said, thanks for calling, make Evansville beautiful. It's in Evansville. And they've got yellow signs. I see their telephone number on, there's some around Marion too.
Yeah.
They buy them up. I don't know what they're doing.
And there's another place right beside that, people moved out, it's still sitting there. There's varmints over there. I mean, I can sit on my patio and watch them.
And again, I will say this for the department. We went-
I'm not congratulating you, but I just want to know what we do.
We went 6 months without a building inspector.
Mhm.
We've now filled that position. So again, our hopes is to get to a point to where I can take half of the building inspector and her, Katie and Grace, will take off on code enforcement.
Yeah, on that one place, I've what, been 3 or 4 years, Jerry? I've been,
Because I know where your case
Yeah, I know.
is.
Yeah.
It's in that pile up there. It's about
Yeah.
that thick.
I'll help you find it if you want me to come out.
They're trying to go get moving again.
Well, that's the whole
I
thing.
know you're trying, because you've helped us, I mean.
Yeah.
But you can only do so
It's
much.
just
I
a
got
matter
it.
of we
I
We
understand.
ran out of everything we had prepared and then didn't do anything because we were covering.
But can you actually make somebody move something or tear it down?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We've got to get that train back up. And they, like I said,
okay.
they've got paperwork to move, letters to send. It's just.
Yeah, okay.
We've got to get.
That's all I've got.
Okay, was that Indian happy?
Real quick, my name is Ryan Howell. I, 2909 South Branson Street, Marion, Indiana. But it's just a suggestion. I don't know how many permits we got, but what if we start trimming the permit tree and maybe try to, and maybe they're all important, but it's just a suggestion, but maybe try to get rid of as many permits as we can and make it more lucrative for contractors to do work and bring down the cost of building things. And it's just a suggestion. And I just tell a joke, to build revenue, maybe we can put a toll up on 69 every time they go through Grant County, people can pay. Yeah, one road going north and south, right? But thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a time frame we have to process a permit that's received? Or we just do it immediately?
24 hours.
Huh?
Usually we try to do it within 24 hours.
Just wonder if we couldn't
They don't
extend that
really-
out a little bit.
They'll come in today and then we'll fill up the schedule and once she hits like 15, then we start for the next day.
So I know like I signed for building permits in Sweetser. They'll call me, hey, I need to get this signed. They're telling me I need to sign this before they'll issue it. So I mean, they're down there waiting for my signature. Okay, well, bring the paperwork. I'll sign it and fax it to them. But yeah, they run a very, well, the contractors. Once they get into motion, they bam, bam, bam. As far as wanting a permit. All right, any other business? Take a motion to adjourn then.
So.
All in favor? Aye.
Do my part.
Thank you.